Tonight, stocks plummet. The worst day on Wall Street in 6 years as one of Wall Street's largest investment firms goes bankrupt and another is bought out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. That was Charlie Gibson on World News Tonight. Well, it was back in September 15, 2008, 5 years ago yesterday, when Lehman Brothers collapsed and the financial crunch and downturn all began. Joining us now to talk about where we are and where we're going and what we've done is our friend Steve Moore of the Wall Street Journal. Hello, Stephen. How are you?
Hi, Steve. Great to be with you.
Well, thank you. Always great to talk to you. I just want you to hear Obama yesterday with George Stephanopoulos on ABC This Week. This is the other cut that we were starting with.
Well, let's think about where we were 5 years ago. The economy was on the verge of a Great Depression. In some ways, actually, the economic data and the collapse of the economy was worse than what happened in the 1930s. And we came in, stabilized the situation. We've now had 42 straight months of growth, 7.5 million new jobs created, 500,000 jobs in manufacturing, 370,000 jobs in an auto industry that had completely collapsed. The banking system works. It is giving loans to companies who can get credit. And so we have seen, I think, undoubtedly, progress across the board. The housing market has recovered.
Everything sounds pretty good. I mean, he went on to say that we're not there yet, but everything sounds pretty good.
Oh, wow, that was an amazing quote. I had not heard that one, Steve, and this is maybe the first time that this president, I've heard him say 1,000 times he's helped us get out of the worst recession since the Great Depression. I think I heard him say this was almost worse than the Great Depression.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is an amazing thing to say. Look, I lived, by the way, through the 1970s. I remember what Ronald Reagan inherited with the economy and a complete collapse. So I'm not so sure this was even the worst recession since the Great Depression. But what we do know factually that this is the worst recovery from a recession since the Great Depression.
And why is that? I mean, all the numbers he just gave, I guess if it was all true on its face, that would all be pretty good news, right?
Well, look, the economy we're in the fifth year of recovery. It's been a kind of non-recovery recovery. We've had job creation that's about half the pace of what we normally get during a recovery and about a third of the pace of what we got under Reagan. We've seen economic growth rates that are less than half. We're growing at 1.5% to 2%. We should be growing at 4%. And then, of course, the incomes of Americans, which is maybe the statistic that people care most about what's happening to their paychecks and what's happening to their ability to pay their bills, those have lost $2,300 adjusted for inflation since the recovery began. Now, I'm not talking about during the recession. People lost a lot of money during the recession. But what's amazing about this recovery is that in the recovery, people are still losing money.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, it's been said by many, many people. You and I have talked about this, and if we needed confirmation of our views and opinions, we've had it. And that is that, more and more people are leaving the labor force. It's at an all-time or modern era low of workforce participation. We have part-time jobs. I think it was Mort Zuckerman who said that part-time jobs will comprise over 50% of all working people in the United States in the not-too-distant future.
If we stay on the trend we're on.
Yeah,
right
I mean,
now.
this is horrific news.
Yeah. Now, look, I'm optimistic. I actually think we might see a bit of a faster recovery in the second half of this year. Let's keep our fingers crossed. But so far, this economy continues to disappoint, and it disappoints for exactly the reasons, the opposite reasons that Barack Obama has been citing when he gave a speech today saying, the stimulus worked so well, and the auto bailouts and the bank bailouts and the mortgage modification programs and all these things, and the tax increase on the rich. I would make the case to you, Steve, that those were all things that actually have made the economy really grow so slowly. In fact, I think we'd be growing much more quickly if we had not had the big tax increase this year. I think the stimulus plan was the biggest waste of money in the history of Washington, and that's saying a lot. That's $800 billion that we have to pay off, and Lord knows if we ever will, but it won't be me and you. It'll be our children and our grandchildren and their children that'll pay it off.
We're talking to Stephen Moore of the Wall Street Journal here on the Steve Malzberg Show. And, of course, you know, we have Obamacare staring us in the face. What's your take on this this whole debt ceiling and the effort that, I don't know. I mean, I'm surprised to hear that there are Republicans in the leadership at all that want to even delay Obamacare, because I thought that Boehner had rubber stamped it and said it's going to happen. We're not going to shut down the government. And now maybe some people are going to make a stand. But when this thing kicks in, I mean, we're already seeing it. We're already seeing the disaster.
Yeah. You know, this was another, remarkable statement the president made in his economic speech today, where he said, you know, no serious economist believes that repealing Obamacare is going to help the economy. Well, I'm raising my hand. I guess I'm not a serious economist, because not only do I think that this would help the economy, if you ask me, Steve, what's the single thing we could do right now that would help get the economy back on course, I would say repeal Obamacare, because it has a significant disincentive effect on businesses to grow, to hire more workers, and to hire more full-time workers. I mean, when you were talking about the part-time worker trend, a lot of this goes to regulations in laws like Obamacare that make it extremely expensive to bring on full-time workers.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. So 5 years hence, where do you think, with your optimism, where do you think we'll be?
5 years from now?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a tough thing. Look, I actually think the one thing that has happened in the last 5 years, which is very good, it's totally independent of government, is that if you look at what's happened with American businesses and American companies and American corporations, since we hit that terrible patch in 2008, 2009, today American companies are lean, mean fighting machines. They are the most efficient companies in the world today are in the United States of America. They're not German, they're not French, they're not Japanese, they're not Chinese, they're American companies. So, you know, my attitude has always been, if we could just get the government the hell out of the way right now, I think that the American economy and businesses would start to really flourish.
All right, now let's talk about the Fed chief with Lawrence Summers. Were you surprised that he took himself out of the running?
Yeah, I was, because this guy has an ego that would barely fit in the Empire State Building, and he's got a God complex. I always thought he would have been a lousy choice you don't want someone who thinks that he's a master of the universe and has no humility running the Federal Reserve. And so I don't think Larry Summers would have been a very good choice. None of these people, though, that they're talking about are very good. I mean, Janet Yellen, who's now the big leader, she's an inflation dove. She believes, Steve, that the way you create growth is by printing more money. If it were as easy as that, then Mexico would be the richest country in the world.
Yeah, so if she were to come in and her philosophies were to be carried out, would it be a continuation of what Bernanke's doing with the?
Yeah. And more so. You know, I think you would see this quantitative easing on a even grander scale. And quantitative easing, for those who are not monetary economists, that's just a fancy term for saying printing money and flushing it into the economy. But we all know this. You don't have to be a PhD economist to know when you keep printing money like this at this reckless pace and keep borrowing it, that leads to the big I word, inflation.
Who would you like to see in there besides yourself?
Larry Kudlow.
Larry Kudlow.
How about Steve Forbes?
Yeah,
I mean, somebody who really understands how the economy works. I mean, but I'm not going to rule out, by the way, Steve, the idea that Ben Bernanke is reappointed. Remember, Bill Clinton reappointed Alan Greenspan,
right? Yeah,
chairman, even though he was Republican. So Wall Street wants. Look, here's the problem. Wall Street is addicted to the crack cocaine of cheap money right now. They want anybody in the Fed who'll just keep it coming, keep giving us those doses of this crack cocaine. And that's all they want right now.
And they'll get that from Bernanke. They'll get that from Yellen.
And they'll get it from Bernanke. We need somebody who has the guts to take the punch bowl away.
Yeah, well, we need a president who has the guts to appoint someone who has the guts. And I don't think that's going to happen.
That's why it's not going to happen.
Yeah, Stephen, always a pleasure. Thank you, my friend.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Take care. Stephen Moore, ladies and gentlemen, Wall Street Journal. Interesting. He doesn't think it's beyond the realm of possibility that Bernanke gets appointed again. All right, folks, we're coming back. A busy news day with the shooting at the Navy Center in Washington, D.C. 855-777-9660 on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV and radio.